was a good man from what I seen. I wish I had a good man like Papoose. Remy might now want Papoose back, and he done moved in with his new girlfriend. Now she gotta play the hand that.
This was a good man from what I seen. I wish I had a good man like Papoose are and might now want Papoose back, and he done moved in with his new girlfriend. Now she got to play the hand that she picked. She was standing on the corner of a bustling street in New York, the skyline towering above her, the usual D of city noise swirling around her in a chaotic yet oddly comforting rhythm. Yet today something felt different. The air was heavier, the people rushing by seemed more distant, and even the honking horn sounded more urgent. Remy GL at her phone checking the time. She was waiting for Vanessa, her girlfriend. It was supposed to be a normal day, just another moment in their whirlwind relationship, which had seemed so perfect at the start. Remy smiled, remembering the first time they met. Vanessa had this magnetic energy, a presence that drew Remy in immediately, but she was beautiful, full of life, with a confidence that made her seem untouchable. It was everything Remy had wanted and needed after years of navigating the rough terrain of the music industry. She had been lonely, caught in the pursuit of success, but Vanessa had changed that. She filled the void Remy didn't even realize was there. For a while it was perfect. Their bond felt like something from a fairy tale, intense, passionate, and undeniable. They spent hours talking about their dreams, their ambitions, and the future they could build together. Remy had never thought that love could feel this right, that it could feel this safe. Vanessa wasn't intimidated by Remy's success. Instead, she admired it, something Remy had never experienced before. It felt like they were invincible, like nothing could come between them. But as the days passed, cracks started to appear in their seemingly perfect bubble. It began with little things, misunderstandings, missed calls, moments when one of them would snap, frustrated with the pressures of their lives. But what started as small issues began to snowball, and before long the passion that once seemed so thrilling started to feel like a burden. Remy was used to taking control in every aspect of her life, on stage, in the studio, in her career, but relationships weren't as simple. Vanessa was no pushover, and when it came to their differences she wasn't afraid to challenge Remy. It was a new experience for her, someone who wasn't intimidated by her strength, someone who could hold her ground. At first Remy found it exhilarating, but slowly the tension built. They were constantly at odds, arguing over the smallest things. The line between love and frustration blurred, and it wasn't long before the arguments became more frequent and more intense. Remy tried to remain calm, tried to be the rock Vanessa needed, but her patience was wearing thin. She wanted to fix things, but no matter what she did, it always seemed like it wasn't enough. The words they used during their fight started to sting more, each one carving deeper into the foundation they had once built together. Remy's pride, her need to stay in control, began to clash with Vanessa's stubbornness. Vanessa wasn't going to back down either, and for the first time Remy found herself unsure of how to handle it. But that calm before the storm never lasted. The arguments, the resentment, the unsaid words, it all started to feel like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Remy found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about their relationship. Was it worth fighting for? Or was it just a matter of time before it all came crashing down? Today, as she waited for Vanessa, Remy's heart was heavy with uncertainty. She had tried everything to make things right, but they had both been scarred by their pasts, and sometimes those scars were all too present in their relationship. Remy had spent so much time building walls around herself, protecting her heart from the pain of betrayal and heartbreak that had come with her rise to the top. Vanessa too had her own issues, her own traumas, her own fears of vulnerability, but they had promised each other that they would make it work, that they would overcome the obstacles in their path. At least that's what they told each other in the quiet moments when things felt good again, when the storm seemed to pass and they were reminded of why they fell in love in the first place. The more she tried, the more she felt like she was losing her grip on something that had once seemed so certain. She had never felt so helpless, so out of control. The street around her felt even more suffocating as the realization settled, and something was going to happen, and she wasn't ready for it. When Vanessa finally arrived, there was a look in her eyes that Remy hadn't seen before, something distant, something unreadable. Remy's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of the moment, the storm that had been brewing for weeks. Vanessa didn't say a word at first. She simply stood there staring at Remy, and for a brief moment the world around them seemed to stop. Remy, Vanessa finally spoke, her voice softer than usual, yet there was a firmness to it that made Remy's heart skip a beat. We need to talk. Remy took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever was to come. I know, she replied, her voice steady, even though inside she felt like she was falling apart. The conversation that followed was one Remy would never forget. They talked about their fears, their frustrations, and the painful truth that their love, as powerful as it had been, had started to break under the weight of their unresolved issues. Neither of them wanted to admit it, But the reality was inescapable. Their relationship was on the edge, teetering between love and destruction. As Remy listened to Vanessa's words, she realized that the storm had finally arrived, the calm before it had ended, and now everything they had built together was unraveling before her eyes. It wasn't just about love anymore, it was about survival. They had both fought so hard for their individual dreams, but now they were left to fight for each other or risk losing everything. The tension between them wasn't helped by Vanessa, who was never the type to keep quiet. She always pushed back when she felt it was needed. Maybe it was the drinks or just a simple misunderstanding, but something changed one night when Remy wasn't fully aware of what was happening. Vanessa was hurt by the very hands that used to comfort her. What started as something beautiful slowly crumbled, and both of them found themselves caught in something they weren't ready for. The dream they had seemed to turn into a nightmare, and neither could fully grasp how things had spiraled out of control. Remy had always been a source of strength, using her words and presence to inspire others, her voice electrifying crowds. But one night everything changed. In a fit of rage, her hands, once used to uplift and empower, found themselves around Vanessa's throat, leaving a mark. Neither of them could ignore that. It wasn't just another argument. This one hit deeper, stirring up old emotions and memories that Remy had long buried. The jealousy, the unresolved tension, it all came rushing back, threatening to pull everything apart. Remy's anger, which had been building for years, overwhelmed her. In that moment she lost control, and something inside of her broke. The anger that had simmered for so long was unleashed in a way that neither of them could stop. It wasn't just a fight, it was a turning point, and neither of them could undo what had been done. The anger that had been quietly building up inside Remy for so long finally exploded, and Vanessa was left in shock. She could barely hold herself up, her hands gripping the wall as fear took over. Remy's eyes, cold and unblinking, stared straight through her, and for a moment everything felt wrong. Vanessa had never seen Remy like this before, not this angry, not this intense. She thought she knew Remy, but in that moment the woman standing in front of her felt completely different. Vanessa didn't understand why Remy was acting this way or what had pushed her so far. All she knew was that something deep and dangerous had shifted between them. The love they once shared seemed distant now, and everything had changed in the blink of an eye. Words felt like a blow. Her pulse thumped in her chest as she tried to communicate with built armor exploded. Controlling things, being the strong one, and being able to face life obstacles with accuracy and poise had always been something she took pride in. After pushing Vanessa hard against the wall, Remy surrounded her with a small area that felt like it was closing in on her for the second time. The sound of Vanessa's body smacking into the plaster board seemed to slow down, and Remy stood with her hands still spread, her chest rising and falling with the intensity of her breath. But now there was only the storm that had been Remy understand the situation and break through the wall of anger that seemed to, despite it being their first fight, where had never lost control this badly. Vanessa could see and sense the heat of the hazardous energy that appeared to surround them both. "This is not what you're ready for." It was oppressive. Remy's voice was as icy as ice as she spat. It was pure unadulterated wrath, and she was no longer thinking or attempting to make. She was bound, desperate. Her veins throbbed as she tried to. She attempted but was unable to break away from Remy's relentless hold, since Remy was too powerful. The horrible weight of the situation broke Vanessa's spirit, causing her to struggle and move more frantically until she finally screamed. But it wasn't just a cry, it was a terrible sound that tore through the air, the sound of someone who never imagined that their life would fall apart hard, or that they would find themselves in this predicament. First, Remy's chest tightened as Vanessa's scream sliced through her like a blade, causing her breath to catch in her throat. When Remy heard the sound of someone in pain, someone who was terrified for their life, her abruptly subsided, and she became fully aware of the circumstances. Her mind started racing.